was waiting for you, Marlu. Um, yeah, welcome everyone. So, yeah, this next Casual Conversations podcast, um, we've
Yeah,
decided to, what have we decided, Marlu?
we decided to talk about the brain.
Yeah, and specifically, the brain, but the topic was PTSD, right? So trauma,
Trauma,
basically, and
brain,
include the brain. Yeah.
PTSD, all those linked pieces that are very interesting and you can go very deep and um, we can share some of the pieces that we've came across because we both like on this topic. um, yeah, we both dived in this topic. So let's see what we gathered.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I agree. We've both really dived into this area a lot because I've always felt that when I first got sick in 2008, as I started learning about myself and I started discovering, I always I began to realize as an intuitive person when I was reading about illnesses and starting to understand that it had a psychosomatic, a mental and emotional on the body component. I started realizing that as the years went on, that trauma for many people is just a much broader concept than most people realize that they're suffering from. And many people that are stuck,
Mhm.
and even people that aren't stuck but don't realize it, are suffering from some form of trauma. And the question is whether they're actively aware of whether they're suffering from it and whether they need to or want to do anything about it or not. But that's my introduction here around this topic. And I think it's very important because to address and work with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, and trauma, we need to really look at it from completely different perspectives and multiple perspectives. Like you were saying, Marlu, is one perspective that we have to understand is how the brain neurology, the wiring of our nerves, and how our mental psychological components relate to the physical experience of trauma that keeps us into like biochemical loops, addictive tendencies, and patterns
Mhm.
that we can't rewire. The brain is very plastic. We can rewire things, but often these things get stuck. And there's a deeper basis that we need to work with food and nutrition, for example, or supplementation to begin to support that process. But I found that even that hasn't helped me quite enough. It's helped me a bit, but it's helped me maybe about 30%, 30 to maybe a third. So if I'm really being realistic and honest, a third of it was that. So it's helped somewhat, but a lot of it
Yeah,
still also depends on other factors, you know? So
and I can tell you know a lot about supplements because you have really
yeah,
dove deep
yeah,
into health and nutrition and supplements,
yeah,
and you've helped me uh, get my like supplements routine better adjusted and more efficient, and which is
yeah,
very helpful. And but this is just a small aspect, this is an aspect you can do, but that you can like Google this topic and you get like bombarded with with all
yeah,
the things and all the information.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole topic there that we can go into more another time, but for now, um, right? It's PTSD. So there's also, you said this today, Marlu. So I wanted to bring our attention and for the whole group as we're bringing up, and even taking a moment to just taking a breath and bringing up this trauma field, because it literally is a trauma field, as we work with it in this podcast by discussing what are our perspectives and experiences of this. You, Marlou, were referencing this as an echo that still keeps on sounding, that we continue to, that literally like a reverberation, because that's how I see it, a reverberation, like that is what an echo is, a reverberation, a movement, a pattern movement that keeps reverberating, and every day we keep attuning to that reverberation. We keep waking up, and our lives, if it's deep enough, if it had a deep enough psychological, neurological, biological impact in our systems, will attune to that trauma field, and the reverberation will take over the noise, the neural noise in our brain, again connecting it to the biochemistry of the brain, will begin to take over the way that we experience and see, the filters through which we see life. And it can be very incapacitating, paralyzing, demoralizing, you know. So maybe speak a little bit about what you see there, Marlou.
This echo, let's call it like we can have different, we can experience different situations in life, whether it's like but let's keep it to trauma. If you experience something, you often notice that you find yourself in a state that is like continuously the feeling of you've been left with a feeling of being traumatized. And this feeling can be like a feeling of that's going on continuously. Like maybe you're so traumatized that you're not even aware of that feeling happening. And when you wake up the next morning, for example, you still feel the same, like in your system. It's a vibration. It's like a tuning fork. It's like somebody has like slammed the tuning fork in a distorted way, and then your system is like
a disharmonious way,
harmonious way, and then your system is like attuning to that. And then you wake up in the morning and you still feel, especially our brains, when we're very open, and then in the morning, then our brains is like continuously going with that feeling. And it's very hard to notice. But I was listening to a talk, and then there was said like you really have to like cut off the things that are lingering in your system. And you can do it on a mental level with your intention. Only intention, you can do a lot, you know. If you well, you might, for example, when you have a conversation with someone and it went wrong, I often find myself like going on with that conversation in my mind, and it becomes like also like an echo, and I feel like this is going on, and my system is like something else has to happen to get me out of that you know, that pattern. But when we've experienced a lot of trauma in our life, we might have different echoes like going on, you know, in our system that haven't been closed off, you know. And even becoming aware of that happening, you know, becoming aware of that information that's going on can help your system like, oh, okay, I can do something here. And with your brain, with your intention, with your mind, with focus, you can like connect to yourself and really like take a moment and get still and intend to like close it off, whatever is going on still in your system. If it is a conversation, if it is you waking up in the morning and you have had some like not very pleasant dreams, this feeling can linger on
Yeah.
to your day. That
Now, when you
like
sorry, I'm interrupting you. Do you
mm,
finish? I was going to say something. Were you finished?
yeah, when you have slept and you wake up and when you people call it, yeah, I've stepped out of my bed with the wrong leg, you know.
That's like a Dutch saying, yeah.
It's a Dutch saying that you're not as happy or whatever, but it can
Mm-hmm.
come from like a PTSD state,
Mm-hmm.
or even when you have a bad dream and you're
Mm-hmm.
still in energy and you don't cut it off, you don't really separate yourself in a moment from the dream and from
Yeah.
the place you are in and the things you want to do with a fresh mind. Next, when you wake up, you have to really, you can use your intention there. And it might sound new for some people because um, your body is really listening to your mind. It's not a closed off system. It's
Yeah.
connected. Your thoughts and your body, your emotions, it's all
So,
connected.
yeah, so that's a very good description of this. And I would say that a lot of things came up as you were speaking that I had to kind of remember, but there are some really good things that I wanted to share here. So it also creates a psychic fracturing in our system where we get splintered, we get
Mhm.
we lose the we become scattered in our minds and in our bodies, in the energies, in our awareness of our energy and our coherence in our system. So that's
Yeah.
also one aspect of what it does. And that
Yeah.
creates, when that echo that you were describing takes over and keeps on going, um, I would imagine, and I'm just posing this as a general, but obviously this is what happens is we are not really living our own lives. We're living the lives as an echo of something that takes over, right? So we are
Mhm.
not really, we're manifesting, we're creating our lives from an echo of the trauma that actually enforces, pulls our lives into a continuous narrow pattern of a direction. And it also literally is what the brain does, is it narrows our focus, but not in a good way. It narrows our focus in a distorted way in that version of the traumatic event that happened. So that's also one thing that I can share in relation to what you said, Marlu. And I would say that it's also very misunderstood because there's
Mhm.
also a whole Western medical and institutional um, machinery that we are part of living in the West, let's say, and everywhere in the world, I imagine. But I find that Western institutions, like mental health services and things, if I'm really honest, until now, and I've had experience with all of this
Mhm.
in an open way, figuring out what would support me when I have been going through a lot of PTSD. And I find that often they don't even understand at the lower levels of these institutions, the people that you deal with, they don't really fully understand the complexities of what many people like us that go into spirituality because you've experienced so much issues, so much adversity, so much trauma, so much sickness and struggle in life. They have
Mhm.
no idea of the complexities of what it really means. They just understand it a little bit on paper. And of course, there's various people that may be more specialized and understand it better. But on the whole, if I'm honest, and I'm going to be honest here, I was disappointed. Until now, I've been very disappointed. And um, yeah, so that's another area where it doesn't mean not to, so I'm not telling anyone not to go there if you
Mhm.
feel inclined to ask for help and support, which we do need when we have been traumatized and we have a form of PTSD because certain situations in our life have affected us so much that we're living that echo every day. I'm not saying that you then shouldn't look for help, but you should be really open for very broad ways of receiving support in the right ways from different sources. You know, and Marlu and me here are bringing, for those of you, you know, listening to this and resonate with it, are bringing a piece of the puzzle. But any teacher or healer or practitioner or whatever that tells you that they have the answer and they have the solutions and they know how it works and this is the way, for the most part, where I'm at now, I would honestly say run, because they don't. Because nobody does, because we're all in the discovery of this. But we have wisdom and we have experiences to share, and we can be examples for each other as long as we're open and know what we don't know and stay in our vulnerability and our truth, as well as show up with what we have to share. We can help each other through that. And I think one last piece I want to share here is community is very important. Although I honestly haven't experienced, I mean, I have strong imprints of what it is like to belong to family. You have as well, Marlu, because you come from a big family. I have imprints and experiences in this lifetime of being part of a community that was unconditionally loving, which is a very good imprint to carry. So I have those imprints. But overall, it's hard to maintain that with people in life. So we and that's a whole different topic that we haven't done yet. So that goes into community and the needs for others in order to heal. But I have not found the right community yet that actually really unconditionally helps in the right way and supports, because we all need to, and this is the problem with trauma, we all need to individually strengthen ourselves and become disciplined masters of our own lives before we can be that with others, including in romantic relationships, etc. We can't be traumatized and have a healthy connection to ourselves and to others. So these are some of the struggles that I would say. Right?
Yeah, those pieces go together. You know, when you're traumatized, it has most of the time something to do with your relation to others. So
yes, because the wounds that caused the trauma have happened in connection also from others.
So
with others. So
and when you're looking for healing, that might be the most difficult part, to open up and trust in people again, and then search for help. You know, that's like you need people often to get information. You know, that's
and
like
it goes back to what you
it's up it can bring up the trauma again, you know. But nowadays, a good thing I think is you can look up online so much stuff, and you can sometimes you can even feel like safer places, you know, online by and then that's often the only way to get you started, you know. But so that's,
well, there's two things that come up.
Okay.
There's two things that come up. One thing is that you said in the last podcast, I think it was the last one, where we recreate the trauma based on the experiences we've had, and also the family of origin, and also the way that we've experienced our family unit, and or the lack thereof, and the nurturing or the abuse that we've experienced, or the neglect. So we tend to re-experience that as a pattern in other situations. So that makes it extra hard, because then what our system is looking for is a recreation of that experience in order to heal. So we have to go through the recreation in order to heal, which we don't want, because it was so deeply traumatizing that we'll possibly re-traumatize ourselves in the recreation. So we avoid it altogether. That's the attachment piece. But this is where the healing also lies. So the people that are most traumatized have the most extremely difficult time and the strongest avoidance to others and the strongest need for others at the same time to heal.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
that makes it life fucked up, in my opinion, because who designs that? But anyway, that's a problem with I have with God, I guess. Um, and the second thing that I wanted to share, what was the second thing that I wanted to share? I forgot. Oh yes. So you said this morning as well, Marlu, is to become aware of the trauma field in our system, in our bodies, or in our psyche, and to begin to notice the outer edges of our trauma field, to begin to spatially reference that, if you can conceptualize that space. Because
Mhm.
if you can't, which I had for a long time, and I still have often, I can't feel it in myself. I can feel it easier in others, but in myself, I could not access it. So, because, and this is one of those tendencies, when you have autistic like traits or ADHD like behaviors and tendencies in that area of learning disabilities, etc., you tend to, what I understand from it until now about myself and about this, and this is another whole different topic again, but it relates to this point that I'm going
Mhm.
to make. You tend to not have an own identity. You tend to not know who you are as an identity of a being or a person,
Yeah.
which has its advantages, because this is why spirituality becomes part of your life very easily, because you then tend to merge with everything and feel everything so intensely. And if you're sensitive and open, you tend to merge with life fully, which is a beautiful aspect of deeply experiencing life. But at the same time, it's also very traumatizing when you go and dive into experiences that are very unhealthy, or you've experienced a lot of abuse in attachment and in connection with others. So that's what I've also experienced to a really deep extent because of being that. And then it becomes so much part of the infinity of you, the soup that is you, that you can't feel, that you can't
Mhm.
discern who you are separate from the trauma that you experienced. And then when you have that type of patterning, it's very difficult to begin to say no and begin to build up the muscle of focusing on the identity of who you are in your life, separate from the traumatic experiences that are not you, that you've
Mhm.
experienced. And that is extra challenging for people, um, I would say. So this is something that I wanted to throw in there, a little bit of a more advanced topic again. But
Yeah.
that is the key to healing, is you need to be able to observe and separate yourself in your consciousness, in your ability to see and observe yourself from the experience, and see the experience as something separate from you, but stay in connection with it so that you can digest and heal it. And that's where the
Mhm.
heart space, like you were, I think you were mentioning that, Marlu, but the heart space is very important. The love, the self-love, and the compassion and the
Yeah.
forgiveness is a key piece too, because often, um, depending on your constitution, your nature, and your patterns and your behaviors and the way you are wired. In my case, for example, I had a lot of unforgiveness around this topic, because the things that happened, that I can go into massive detail about, which I'm not going to do right now, have made me victimized to the point where it was just very difficult to forgive. But then you hold in place the resistance to actually releasing and letting that go. And with
Yeah.
that, the trauma cannot actually integrate and heal. It stalls the process immensely, especially if you go to those higher level vibrations, if you move up that ladder.
Yeah.
Um, it
That's
becomes very
very
painful.
important. Yeah.
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 So that was a
That's
lot
very
what I just shared. But go ahead. Yeah.
that's um forgiveness is very important
Yeah.
because um you might when you're traumatized, and I can relate to this piece, then you often start to dissociate from parts of yourself,
Mhm.
and you might feel unclear in your mind, and also emotionally like um you're not all there, when you you know yourself being in a way that you experience as a person, as an identity. But when you're traumatized, you it's like you form a new identity with that trauma in a way. And in this new identity, you can like hold all those pieces of I cannot forgive myself, or dissociate from what happened.
Yeah.
And there can be a lot of your um, your I don't know how to label it
Yeah.
exactly, but some call it like pieces of your soul that you lose in a way.
Yeah,
Let's call
soul
it.
loss is what shamanic practitioners call that.
Yeah,
Soul.
and that is a very like deep part of people who are traumatized,
Yeah.
that are experiencing that and
Yeah.
looking to like reconnect those pieces and then
Like
like unwind.
reconstitute yourself.
Yeah, exactly. This is very
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
And you're very good with that, Marlu, as well, because it requires a lot of depth of love in order to hold together a field to help people come back to themselves in safety and trust, because this is what's needed. And
Yeah.
often I've over the years experienced and been with many women that have been traumatized from abuse, physical
Mm.
or sexual abuse. And so the, that is a requires a lot of love and safety and yeah, structure and support in order to, and all including what you've been through, Marlu, which was a lot of that, I would say, through religion as well. In And again, so religion topic that we haven't really fully discussed yet, but for now we can say that
And also what's already in our system
yeah.
from from our family system,
Mm-hmm.
you can experience like you can be unaware of this and go through life feeling like pieces
Yeah.
of you feel very numb.
Yeah.
And you might think, oh, this is normal, or I've
Mm-hmm.
always been like that. But often when you feel numb, that is uh, often related to trauma. And it
Yeah.
can also be happens not in your life, but in family,
Generational.
or
Yeah.
um, and from what I've experienced, like in sessions, like, oh, this is from a past life.
Yeah.
And I, I haven't been raised believing in past lives or any of that. So that was kind of new. But
Mm-hmm.
when it resonated so deep in my system, I just could not like,
Ignore it. Yeah.
deny it anymore. But
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so like deep in those pieces, they just came up, and you can feel numb in your system right now because everything happens now.
Yeah.
It's like all those timelines,
Yeah.
and feel the numbness from the trauma or whatever. And
Yeah.
but a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm just like this. But if you're very aware, you can start to pick out the people that have it in the system. So it's, yeah, don't dismiss when you're feeling numb, because um yeah, it's
Yeah, it's a very important sign or indicator. I would also say here, there's something that came up around what I find very interesting, which is that we have an organic and a synthetic way of life, especially now. We're seeing the split between those two more and more with AI, for example, best example, right? Everybody knows that. We talk about this now, 2024, but also very much the organic way of life, our biology and our DNA, which I believe is, through what I've understood and learned until this point, is maybe not even fully organic. It may have been somehow changed, manipulated. We've maybe evolved in a certain way. Maybe
Mhm.
we didn't fully originate here on planet Earth. I don't really know any of this. Is going very far into that, but whatever it is, I don't believe we're fully organic, and certainly our choices are based on synthetic choices more and more. That's for sure. Technology, um, losing our connection with the earth, with nature, environment, food, um, social media, which pulls us into technological things. We've talked about this before, getting lost in our technologies,
Mm-hmm.
um, losing our connections to other people, sperm rates going down for men, children, civilizations, whole civilizations have collapsed in the past because of the tendencies that we're seeing now. We're on the brink of destruction in all kinds of ways, and all the doom and gloom around that as well. But so a lot of technological synthetic realities that we're creating, sub realities, I would say, that we're living off of. And there's the organic path of choosing to be more in our bodies, to be grounded, to be connected to the earth in our hearts, and choosing things that nurture us and support connection, most importantly, connection with human people, not with robots and machines. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that feeds into this discussion, which we can talk about more because I'm very interested in that. But I also think that is where many people get fearful, including people that don't want anything to do with spirituality, or people that say, well, I'm scared of this, or gurus this, abuse this, cults this, which we've talked about somewhat. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that in order to heal, like we said earlier, you do need to reconnect with people, and you do need to find people that are, and I think that, in my opinion, at least what I look for, is people that have depth and that understand things and that are true in their system and that have a higher vibrational something that they can offer, that we can grow and learn from, which is organic and connected and very real and very present. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that traumatized people need that a lot, but often may they have to be very careful of a lot of false light that comes from that synthetic reality that doesn't actually help them further. That it may help them a bit, but it doesn't actually help them into um, the true healing that they need on the organic path, back to themselves, back into their bodies, back to the connection with the earth, back to nature and nurture and the environment and food and the right
Yeah.
sources of, even within supplements, food supplements. You have synthetic supplements, and you have natural food, whole food based supplements, and herbs and plants, etc. So we
Yeah.
have this split, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important when you have deep trauma, that part of what happens and has probably happened to you is you've cut off your connection to belonging to life, nature, the way that we intended to be part of. And we need to refine our way back to that. That would be my suggestion here as a tip, as part of, everything that we're discussing. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
leave it there as we get close to an end. But anything you
Yeah.
want to add to that, Marlou, or any other pieces?
I like that because it's the thing that's always coming back for me is really be very um, sober in a way,
Mm-hmm.
with both feet on the ground
Mm-hmm.
and um, connect to the heart and seek embodied people and not only like woohoo, kind of things that are often more like synthetic, but be very um, yeah, just seek help in with the feet on the ground and think twice, and really look into it and you have a lot of spirituality that is very like grounded and anchored, and people that are very embodied and like have lived through experiences so they can like give you the actual frequencies of how, and they really like can be an example for you to how to get there to the other side, and that's very important, exactly when you're suffering from PTSD and you have a lot of numbness, in your system and um, emotionally unstable or whatever that's really important.
Yeah.
And I know, Lionel, you you are also very good in separating out those soul parts, what we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
to like complete and retrieve those soul parts. You are very good at it. I wanted to
Mm.
mention that for people who are, if you're really looking for diving into that, it's really recommended. I don't
Yeah.
want to, I just
Yeah,
want
and
to know.
to just thank you, Marluba. And that's just to add to that, I'm not by no means a shamanic practitioner that does journeys, which is what they do to retrieve soul parts in that way. But
Yeah.
I guess I can feel where people are very deeply disconnected and misaligned with themselves, and I can tune into intuitively what those parts are, and I get a sense of what that is because I receive those kind of impressions in my system, and then somehow I can connect to that truth in the moment, in the present moment when they show up through the openness of the other person, and then I can kind of feel what to do in order to hold the space so that that can safely come back. So I think that's what you're referring to, Marlu, and
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah, that's
definitely.
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. So with that, I guess we're coming to an end for this, and there's a lot more to be said, but I just can't
A lot
cram it
more.
all into one podcast, 30 to
No,
40 minutes, and
we're
that's not
just
necessary either. So
we're giving these bite-sized um, nuggets here and
yeah,
to inspire, and it's the best from the best place in
yeah,
us. No, yeah,
yeah, exactly. And I wish all of you that are listening to this, if you are suffering, because many people in life are, I believe there's like statistics of 60% of people, young people now here in the West or in Holland even, are struggling with depression, everything. It's a lot, or it's a large number. And
yeah,
so, and a lot of that is trauma or, yeah, trauma based depression, I would say, to keep it simple. But we all need to find new ways of living and healing ourselves. And it starts with that inner choice of coming into the organic path of life and choosing through discipline and support and nurturing ourselves, really making those choices to strengthen ourselves and commit to that. So, with that, let's end it and we see you again next time.
yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.